What's going on, everybody, and welcome back to Johnny K Picks. And in this video, just like last week, I'm going to go over my full card, picks and predictions, along with my bets as well after I do that for UFC 276, Adesanya versus Cannonier. But first things first, please hit that like button. Also hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. And don't forget to turn on those notifications so you don't miss out on any of my new videos or live streams. So, UFC Vegas 57. Where do I begin? It was last night, and here's my takeaway. I really feel like the judging in the UFC, they need to do something about it because it's really hard to bet on these fights now. Not only are you trying to cap fighters, you're capping the judges. You have to try to guess if they're going to either go one way or another, if they're going to favor grappling over striking. Like, you don't even know how they're judging fights from week to week. But more on this in a second. For my picks, I did end up going 6-6. It should have been 8-4, but again, we'll get to that in a little bit. And on my bets, I did horrible. I lost minus 5.39 units, and as far as I can remember, this is one of the worst cards that I've done in a long time. But let's get into the two decisions that were just a little bit crazy. So the first fight of the night was Frey versus Demopoulos, and I actually did miss it live. I couldn't get my stream working for whatever reason, but I'm glad I did because I would have been livid. I went back and I rewatched it this morning, and I do not understand how a judge can give Demopoulos a 30-27 when Frey clearly won rounds 1 and 2. And you also know the judging is very suspect when Sal D'Amato had the correct score in that fight, 29-28 to Frey. And the second one, which was the main event, and I did see that live, 48-47 Gamrot. Now, Arman clearly won rounds 1 and 2. There's no argument, there's no debate, it just is what it is. So that means rounds 3, 4, and 5, all he needed was one round to win this fight. Now, I will give Gamrot round 5. I did think he did do a little bit more than Arman, but rounds 3 and 4 were really close in my eyes. But out of those two rounds, round 4 for Arman should have happened because of the knockdown. And I'm not sure if the judges actually counted that as a knockdown. I know officially it was, but I know a lot of people said maybe the judges didn't see that knockdown or count it as a knockdown, but it clearly was a knockdown. And every one of the judges gave Gamrot round 4. So for me, you can give Gamrot rounds 3 and 5, but you can't give him rounds 1, 2, and 4. So to me, Arman won that fight. It was a close fight, don't get me wrong, but there can be clear winners in close fights, and Arman definitely was the clear winner in this one. And another thing I just want to point out too with the judging again, did you guys notice that after the first round debacle of scoring, that every decision, the judges had it unanimous, the same score in every decision? There were no split decisions, no different scoring. They were all unanimous, like I said. So I don't know if someone said something to the judges or if they were maybe copying off each other because they didn't want to mess up again after the first fight. But to me, that is a little fishy because we know the judging and how crazy it is. I mean, we saw a couple weeks ago a judge gave a fighter a 30-27 in a split decision, and then another judge gave a 29-28 to the opposite fighter. So there's no way that the judges all of a sudden miraculously throughout the fights this week just started doing the same scoring and judging now. So like I said, it's just a little fishy to me. UFC really needs to do something about this. I don't know if they can or if they will, but I mean, like I said, it's just getting really hard to bet on fights now. And really the only way to do it is just bet the over and unders and take the judging out of it. But all right, enough about the judging. I will bring up one really good bright spot on the night, which was Shavkat Rakhmonov. The dude is legit. Now, I know Magny's not one of the top up-and-coming talents or a champion by any means, but he is a very solid fighter. It was Rakhmonov's toughest test yet, and he dominated Magny for 2 straight rounds and got that submission with seconds left. And another thing that I want to point out in that fight is Shavkat showed really good fight IQ, And he is going to be a problem because he was so patient. He grappled until he knew he had a submission. He snatched it up with like 10 seconds left, and he got it with like 3 seconds left. So to me, fight IQ is way more important sometimes than like just talent alone, because I mean, we saw some very bad fight IQ fights in this last card. And we also seen that people with really good fight IQ with not a lot of talent can win fights. So to me, Shavkat's the total package. He has the talent, he has the striking, he's got the grappling, he's got the submissions, and he has fight IQ. I mean, he's going to be a problem. But all right, guys, let's get into my picks and predictions for UFC 276. The first fight we have is Jessica Rose Clark versus Julia Stoliarenko. Clark is 11-7, 34 years old, 5'5" with a 67-inch reach. And Stoliarenko is 9-6-1, 29 years old, 5'7" with a 69-inch reach. Okay, so to start the night off, we have a lovely women's MMA fight. But with my pick, I'm gonna trust Clark one more time to get this victory. So all Clark needs to do is just not get subbed when she's on top control, because the only way that Stoliarenko is gonna win this fight is if she's on her back and gets an armbar. It's the only way. She can't strike. She's not a good wrestler, but she can get that armbar if she's on her back. And I know Clark likes to use her wrestling, and she doesn't really strike that much, but she does have pretty good striking when she does. And it's funny to me that in Clark's last fight, she lost by an armbar when she was on top. So it's a little scary to me. I'm hoping that she learns from her mistakes, but I do like Clark to win this one. It's just that's the only thing that's in my back of my mind, and I'm trusting her one more time. So with my pick here, I'm going to say Clark wins this one by a decision. Next fight we have is Brad Tavares versus Dricus du Plessis. Tavares is 19-6, 34 years old, 6'1" with a 74-inch reach. And Dricus is 16-2, 28 years old, 6'1" with a 76-inch reach. So I'm really excited for this fight, and I do think Dricus is the real deal too. And I'm going to go with the underdog here, and I'm going to pick him to win. So I know Tavares has been around the UFC for a while, and he's a very solid fighter with good power. But I just think Dricus is the more dangerous fighter. I think he's going to have the better striking. I think he's going to have more power as well. And if this fight does get to the mat, I do think he has better grappling than Tavares too. So for me, wherever this fight takes place, I think Dricus is going to have the advantage. Most likely, it probably will play out on the feet, but if not, Tavares does have pretty good takedown defense, so I'm not sure if Dricus is going to want to try to wrestle him. But Dricus does throw more volume, he does have good striking defense as well, and I'm not saying that this is a no-brainer pick for me, but I am very confident that Dricus will win this one. So with my pick here, I'm going to say Dricus does get this one done, and he's going to get the knockout probably in the second or third round. Moving on up the card, we have Jessica Eye versus Macy Barber. Eye is 15-10, 35 years old, 5'6" with a 66-inch reach. And Barber is 10-2, 24 years old, 5'5" with a 65-inch reach. Okay, so with my pick here, I'm going to pick Barber to win. So like I said in my last video about Chris Curtis, I've picked against Barber in her last couple fights, and I'm just done with it. I'm going to right all my wrongs here. I'm picking her to win this one. Barber is really good, don't get me wrong, but I just saw some holes in her game a while ago, but she just looked really good. I think she's improved, and I think she should be able to cruise to an easy win here. For me, Eye isn't that great of a fighter. She does have decent grappling, but I just think Barber is going to have her beat on the striking department, in the clinch, and on the ground if it gets there. And I just really think this is going to be a tough matchup for Eye, because Barber is going to be pushing a good pace on her too, and she's going to be smothering Eye the whole fight. So I'm going to say this is one of my no-brainer picks of the night. So with my pick here, I'm going to say Barber wins this one by a pretty easy decision. Next fight we have is Uriah Hall versus Andre Muniz. Hall is 17-10, 37 years old, 6 foot with a 79.5-inch reach. And Muniz is 22-4, 32 years old, 6'1" with a 78-inch reach. So with my pick here, I'm going to pick Muniz to win. So I think Muniz is actually really good, and he's kind of a dark horse for this division. And I know he's not super young, but he is a really good prospect, and he has really good grappling with submissions. Hall is mainly a striker. He doesn't really go on the mat, but he does have okay takedown defense. But make no mistake about it, Muniz wants to get this fight to the mat. He wants to use his grappling, and once he does get this fight to the mat, which I do think he will, I think it's only going to be a matter of time before he gets a submission. But if this fight does play out on the feet, it's going to be a lot closer, and I may favor Hall just a touch, but I do think Muniz can still win this one, but I do think he's going to get this fight to the mat. It's going to be a quick night for Muniz again. He's going to get maybe like an arm bar or like a arm triangle or something like that. So with my pick here, I'm going to say Muniz wins this one by a submission. Next fight we have is Donald Cerrone versus Jim Miller. Cerrone is 36-16, 39 years old, 6'1" with a 73-inch reach. And Miller is 34-16, 38 years old, 5'8" with a 71-inch reach. All right, so I feel like I just been doing breakdowns for Donald Cerrone the last month every week. So this will be the third time he's going to be trying to fight within, like, I swear it has to be like 4 cards. And this doesn't look good because if you have to try to cut 3 times in like a month and a half, it's going to play a big part in this fight. But with my pick here, I'm going to say Miller wins this one. And like I said, with the weight cuts and stuff, Cerrone already has a questionable chin, and Miller has shown recently that his striking has come along a little bit more than usual. He is known for being a grappler and submission artist, but if this fight does play out on the feet, I think Miller can catch him eventually, and after he hits him once or twice pretty cleanly, I think Donald will probably go down. But if this fight does get to the mat, I do like Miller's chances as well. He's a really good wrestler with really good grappling. But I know Cerrone's good at grappling too, but I just think Miller's going to have the edge in this one. I kind of think this is a slam dunk for Miller. So with my pick here, I'm going to say Miller wins this one by a knockout. Next fight we have is Garry versus Gabe Green. Garry is 9-0, 24 years old, 6'3" with a 74-inch reach. And Green is 11-3, 29 years old, 5'10" with a 73-inch reach. So this is going to be a very interesting fight, actually. And I kind of went back and forth a little bit on this one, but I'm going to end up picking Garry to win. But I'll be honest, I'm really not that confident. I do think Gary's going to be the better striker. He is a little bit more dynamic than Gabe Green. But the thing that worries me with Garry is that he's super hittable, and as the fight does go on, he does tend to slow down a bit. But with Green, he does have good cardio, he does throw a lot of volume, he can take a punch, but he is very hittable too. So again, I'm not exactly sure how Gary's going to look in this fight when Green's always pressuring him, when he's going to be in his face at all times for all 3 rounds, unless he can get Green out of there early. But this is going to be a pretty tough fight for Garry, I think. And another thing too is Garry just fought Darren Weeks, and I actually think Gabe Green is the better version of Darren Weeks. So it's going to be kind of the same fight for him, but it's just going to be a little bit tougher, I think. So I know in this breakdown, I'm actually maybe talking myself out of picking Garry, but I'm going to stick with him. Like I said, not super confident here. So with my pick here, I'm going to say Garry does win this one, but it'll be by a close decision. Moving on up the card, we have Robbie Lawler versus Bryan Barberena. Lawler is 29-15, 40 years old, 5'11" with a 74-inch reach. And Barberena is 17-8, 33 years old, 6 foot with a 72-inch reach. So with my pick in this one, I'm going to go with the underdog, and I'm going to say Barberena wins. I'll admit, both guys aren't the most technical strikers, but they do both have good power, and they throw a lot of volume, and they both like to put on a show. For me, though, I just think Lawler is a little too much past his prime now at 40 years old, and I know Barberena has been in some wars, but Lawler has been in a lot more wars. But I do think Barberena is going to have the edge, especially in the later rounds. I think he's going to have the better cardio. I think he's going to have the better volume. And I think he's going to be able to outstrike Lawler here. And I know both guys are super tough, so I don't see a knockout by anyone. But like I said, this fight's not going to the mat. It's going to be on the feet for 3 rounds. They're going to try to put on a show for everybody in the pay-per-view. And I do think that Barberena is going to land more strikes. So with my pick here, I'm going to say Barberena wins this one, but it's going to be a close decision. Next fight we have is Brad Riddell versus Jalen Turner. Riddell is 10-2, 30 years old, 5'7", with a 71-inch reach. And Turner is 12-5, 27 years old, 6'3", with a 75.5-inch reach. Okay, so this is a very underrated fight for this card. And I'm going to go with the bigger fighter here, and I'm going to say Jalen Turner wins. So both guys are really good strikers. They have a lot of power. but I just can't get past Turner's massive height and reach advantage in this matchup. I will say Riddell has good wrestling, but man, I don't think he's going to be able to even get to Turner with that reach advantage. And not to mention, Turner's takedown defense is 76%, so it's not that bad either. And as I said, both guys are super dangerous with their hands. But if Riddell does catch Turner, I do think he'll go down too, but he's going to have to get really close to Turner and maybe land like an elbow or something like that, because there's no way he's going to be able to land a super clean punch unless it's some kind of counter or something like that. And I know Turner's been knocked out a few times in his career, but Riddell's coming off a knockout loss as well. So this is going to be a good fight either way. I just lean towards Turner because of the height and reach advantage. But if Riddell can mix in some takedowns here and there, he can win this one by a decision. So I'm going to go with Turner. I think he's going to be able to knock out Riddell eventually and piece him up. So with my pick, I'm going to say Turner wins this one by a knockout. Next fight we have is Pedro Munhoz versus Sean O'Malley. Munhoz is 19-7, 35 years old, 5'6", with a 65-inch reach. And O'Malley is 15-1, 27 years old, 5'11", with a 72-inch reach. So I'm really excited for this fight, and with my pick, I'm gonna say O'Malley, but it's not gonna be a super slam dunk by any means. So both guys are strikers. They're going to keep this fight standing. But with O'Malley's height and reach advantage again, I think he's just going to be the more dangerous striker. But Munhoz is very tough. He's never been knocked out in his career. But here's where it might get interesting. Munhoz has very good low leg kicks. And if we think back to the Cheeto O'Malley fight, Cheeto got O'Malley to go down with leg kicks. So for me, I can almost guarantee you Munhoz's game plan is to blast those leg kicks early and often, but O'Malley's going to have to keep his range, maybe check a few here and there, because I'm not sure if O'Malley's leg can hold up for all 3 rounds. But for me, if O'Malley can stay at range and just piece him up for all 3 rounds, I do think he'll be able to get at least a decision and maybe a late round knockout. So with my pick here, I'm going to say O'Malley wins this one. It'll probably be a little bit closer than everyone wants it to be, but I'm going to say he wins this one by a decision. Next fight we have is Sean Strickland versus Alex Pereira. Strickland is 25-3, 31 years old, 6'1", with a 76-inch reach. And Pereira is 5'1", 34 years old, 6'4", with an 80-inch reach. Okay, so this is going to be a very interesting fight. But with my pick, I'm going to go with Pereira to win. So both guys are very good strikers. But I think the more dynamic striker is going to be Pereira. Strickland does have really good boxing and really good striking defense, but I just think Pereira's striking game is a little bit more dangerous. He likes to use elbows, he uses high kicks, he uses knees, and he also has pretty good takedown defense too. Because Strickland does have good wrestling, we just haven't really seen it as of late. But I do think Strickland, that's the way he wins this fight. He needs to incorporate some takedowns, or at least try to, because if he just keeps this fight standing and they just stand and bang in the middle of the ring like he likes to, I think Pereira is going to eventually get the better of him. Strickland does have good cardio, and he could put on a really fast pace for Pereira where he might slow down a bit as the rounds go on. But with my pick here, I'm going to say it's going to be a close one. I'm going to say Pereira wins this one. I don't think there's going to be a knockout, but I do think Pereira is going to land the more strikes and the cleaner ones too, and win this one by a rare decision. All right, co-main event time here. We have Alex Volkanovski versus Max Holloway. Volkanovski is 24-1, 33 years old, 5'6", with a 71.5-inch reach. And Holloway is 23-6, 30 years old, 5'11", with a 69-inch reach. So the trilogy fight is here, and as the last 2 fights went, I think it's going to be exactly the same, and I'm going to pick Volkanovski to win. So as good as Holloway is, and mind you, he is very good, I just think Volkanovski is just a little bit better, and I do think he has Holloway's number. Both fighters have really good striking. They're both different in their striking, but there's a couple red flags for me with Holloway against Volkanovski that I just can't pick him to win. So I know Holloway's never been knocked down technically in his career in the UFC, but that chin has taken a lot of damage over the last 3 or 4 fights, and I just think one of these fights, it's going to betray him, and I'm not saying there's going to be a knockout this fight, but he could get wobbled. And another thing for me too is Volkanovski is going to be the better wrestler. If he's able to take down Holloway, Holloway is not going to be able to do much on it from his back. He does have good scramble ability though, but Volkanovski is going to be just too much for him on the ground. But if this fight does stay standing, it's going to be a close fight for all 5 rounds. But if Volkanovski can mix in some takedowns here and there and maybe secure some rounds with those takedowns, I do think he'll be able to win this one by decision like he did the last couple times. So with my pick here, I'm going to say Volkanovski wins, but it's going to be a pretty close decision, maybe 48-47. Okay, main event time here. We have Israel Adesanya versus Jared Cannonier. Adesanya is 22-1, 32 years old, 6'4" with an 80-inch reach. And Cannonier is 15-5, 38 years old, 5'11" with a 77.5-inch reach. Okay, so I'm gonna say this is a no-brainer pick for me, and I'm gonna pick Izzy to keep his belt. So I'm not trying to say Cannonier's a bad fighter by any means, but I just think this Izzy's on a different level than Cannonier. Both guys are going to be strikers. They both have good striking in their own rights, but I think Izzy's going to be the better kickboxer. He's going to be the more technical striker, and he's going to be the quicker one as well, with the height and reach advantage. Cannonier will have the power advantage, though, so he only needs one shot to take out Izzy, but Izzy has really good striking defense, and it's really hard for people to hit him square. So for me, the only chance that Cannonier has is going to be in the first or second round by knockout. So if this fight does get past the first or second round, I just see this playing out as a classic Adesanya fight. He's going to stay at range. He's going to pick him apart. He's going to counter him whenever he tries to come in. And he's just going to win this one by points. But I wouldn't be surprised if he can get a late round knockout either. But with my pick here, I'm going to say Adesanya wins this one fairly easily. And I'm going to say it's going to be by the decision. But alright guys, those are my picks and predictions for UFC 276. But I'm going to jump right into my bets so far for UFC 276 right now. So the first bet I have is an underdog bet. I bet 1.25 units on Dricus to win, and I got that at plus 100. So as I said in my breakdown with this one, I'm really high on Dricus. I do think he's going to be the better striker, and if this fight does get to the mat, I think he's going to be the better grappler as well. And I know Tavares has been around the UFC for a while, but he has been knocked out 3 times in his career, and Dricus does have a lot of power in his hands. So I do think Dricus can eventually get the knockout, and if he doesn't, I like his chances to get the decision win as well. The next bet I have is a 2-fighter parlay. I bet 1.25 units on O'Malley and Barber to win, and I got that at plus 101. So with O'Malley, I'm not saying this is going to be a slam dunk win for him, but I do think he's the better striker in this matchup. He's just going to have to keep his range and be aware of those low calf kicks. And if he's able to do that, I do think he'll be able to win this one by decision. Munhoz has never been finished in his career, so it's going to be hard for him to get the knockout. I'm not saying he can't do it, but I do see him able to get the decision win at least. And with Barber, I do think this is a slam dunk win for her. She's going to be better overall in every category: striking, wrestling, grappling, in the clinch. So I don't think really has a chance to win this one unless it's by some kind of fluke submission win here. But I really like Barber. I'm tired of picking against her, and I'm going to right all my wrongs here, and she should win this one by a decision fairly easily. And the last bet I have as of now is another 2-fighter parlay. I bet 1.5 units on Volkanovski and Adesanya to win, and I also got that at plus 101. So I know the Volkanovski-Holloway fight's going to probably end up being close, but I do think Volkanovski is the better fighter. The striking is very close, but if he mixes in some takedowns here and there, or gets Holloway up against the fence in the clinch position, that's where I think he's going to be able to steal a couple rounds. And in the end, I just think it's going to be exactly the same as the last two. It's going to be a close fight, but Volkanovski is going to do just enough to win this one again. I just think he's just a little bit better than Holloway, and Holloway's really good too. And with Izzy, I think this is a no-brainer. I think Izzy's going to be the better striker here. And as long as he's not super aggressive and get caught by Cannonier with his power, then I think Izzy should be able to cruise to an easy decision, or maybe even get a late round knockout after Cannonier gasses out a little bit. But alright guys, those are my bets for UFC 276. Thank you everybody for watching. So I may have 1 or 2 more bets later this week once the over and unders and the props come out. So definitely check back on this video in the comments section, or check my Instagram page to see any added bets. I hope everybody enjoys the fights this weekend, and I hope the judging is a little bit better this week. And until next time, Happy fight night.